It is now time to revisit one of our top stories of today, Vladimir Putin's visit to China and the consequences this trip is going to carry moving forward, especially in the context of the war in Ukraine and European security. Tomasz Włostowski, managing partner at EU Strategies, joins me on World News Tonight to unpack the latest. Thank you so much for joining on the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, a deal was agreed about the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, as we mentioned in the program, bigger and more expensive than before. Is this a greater victory for Putin or perhaps for Xi? Who gets more from this deal?
Well, obviously China gets more. China gets more because I think this is just a confirmation again that Russia is becoming not a puppet state, but it's becoming a junior partner to China. So that's number one. China is going to be negotiating this deal for quite a lot of time still. I mean, we have an announcement that the deal is made, but the deal is not finalized. And China is going to be negotiating the price really, really low. And we've already seen an indication that the Russian leadership has indicated that the price is going to be much lower than for Europe because of the length of the pipeline. So, of course, that's already a signal that the price is going to be very low. It also shows, I think, it's not that Russia is a loser here because having a signal from China and just from that meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was important for Putin to show that there is an alternative version of the world. There is an alternative globally to the Western alliance, and Putin needed a signal from, I think, from his partners, from Xi and from India, that he's a valued partner and that he's able to strike deals with the global powers of the world, and he achieved that. So I think Xi has gained more, but Putin is also very happy.
Do you think, as we look at what's happening in China as of now with those plus 20 leaders who are gathered there with Vladimir Putin also joining in, do you think that the West is looking at it with caution and perhaps a worry?
I think, of course, there is some concern, but I think we also have to keep things in perspective, right? I mean, the main powers of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they don't really have that much in common in terms of having aligned global interest. Actually, they're neighbors and they're competitors. China and India, major competitors. China and Russia, for all the storytelling about the everlasting friendship and how close allies they are, they actually have a lot of conflicting interests as well. So I think for people in the West that understand the global dynamics, they understand that this is a meeting that had to take place. That signal that they're sending to the West also had to be sent, but I think they can easily count on the dynamic in the future to basically pull these partners apart. Right now they're allied against the common enemy, the West, but once that pressure eases, the tensions among them are going to come up.
Do you think that we're past the point where we're actually looking at Russia's isolation on the international stage? Do you think that Russia is back in the game, or perhaps it never left?
Well, Russia is more in the game than it was last year. I think we have to be honest about this. I mean, number one, obviously, the arrival of President Trump and the summit in Alaska, I mean, that was a clear signal that Russia, in many ways, is back. This is another step. But, that's only sort of temporary because everything is going to depend on whether President Trump succeeds in getting any concessions from the Russians. I'm quite skeptical that it's going to materialize. And once that doesn't materialize, then again, the tensions will show up between Russia and the United States, and Russia is going to be pushed back into China's arms. And again, the more tensions there are between Russia and the West, I think the more toxic of a partner Russia becomes for everybody else. Right now, there is a moment of Putin's return just because of President Trump. So it's easier for all the other leaders to meet with him. But I think once the pressure is back on, then he's going to be shunned again.
So with the deal struck with China, I mean the agreement that was signed, you said that there's still a long way before that materializes. Do you think that using frozen Russian assets by the West is going to be the only way to force Russia to sit by the negotiating table?
I'm going to be honest, I don't think we're ever going to confiscate the assets, to be honest. And I think the reason for that is we've already seen a lot of signals that the discussion on confiscation of Russian assets is ongoing. We see sort of the same positions being taken by literally everybody. So on the one hand, you have Belgium, which of course is the main actor here because it will be Belgium that will be confiscating the bulk of these assets. Belgium, for a number of reasons, is against it. A number of other countries, Poland, the Baltics, and so on, are quite in favor. But I think there's a stalemate. And this stalemate has been going on for many, many months, and we don't see any more detailed discussions of what exactly can be done to unfreeze those assets. So I think the threat of confiscation of Russian assets is going to be hanging over Russia. I think it's a bargaining chip, but I think it's extremely unlikely they're actually going to be confiscated. But that said, I think they're going to be used in some way. So whatever happens at the end of the war, those assets probably are never going to make their way back to Russia. They're going to be used in some ways for the reconstruction of Ukraine, for the funding of those projects. So something's going to happen to those assets that will help resolve all the damages from the war, but I don't think they're actually going to be confiscated.
Robert Fico, Slovakian Prime Minister, is the only EU leader present in China, and I wanted to bring a quote from him. A new world order is being created, new rules of a multipolar world, a new balance of power, which is extremely important for stability in the world. Being part of such discussions means supporting dialogue and not acting like a sulking little child. This is how the EU and its representatives behave today. Some very interesting words from Mr. Fico. What games is Mr. Fico playing, and does he think that it'll be beneficial for his country in the long run?
Well, I think it's difficult to say. I mean, obviously, he's trying to mimic what Viktor Orban's been doing, right? So he's trying to position himself somewhere between the EU and Russia, and to show that he's not so sort of one-sided.
Successfully?
So far, no. But I think that's, he's taking a long bet. He's taking a long bet, as Orban is. They're taking a very long bet that one way or another, when this war is over, they will be rewarded. And I think it's the bet is not bad, I think, if you think about it strategically. I mean, at some point, the war is going to be over, and some way they're going to be rewarded. Of course, they're suffering massive, I think, costs towards their partners in the EU. The relationship between Hungary and a lot of countries in the EU is ruptured, seriously ruptured. It's going to be difficult to repair it. But I think the broader point that Fico made, he's not wrong. I mean, there is a new, the balance of power is shifting in the world. The East is definitely on the rise. The importance of the West is slowly declining. So, the general point he's making is correct, that we do have to be, I think, open and accept that there are new global powers coming to play. However, the short term, he's going to lose. Long term, we don't know, but we don't know if he's going to be in power to cash his check at the end.
So in his speech on the war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin not only showed his maximalist demands on full display, but he also pushed against NATO's expansion, branding it as a root cause, I quote, of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. And he said, quote, in order for a Ukrainian settlement to be sustainable and long-term, the root causes of the crisis, which I have just mentioned and which I have repeatedly mentioned before, must be eliminated. Are we back to square one after Alaska?
We're not back to square one. I mean, I think Putin has been negotiating all this time. And I think this is for people who know Russia very well and have written about this extensively, this is a classical Russian position. So you take an extreme position and you stick to it no matter what. And then at the very, very end, you concede or you go for compromises. So this is not really, I think, anything new. Putin's been saying the same thing for quite a while. Everybody that had anything to do with the relationship between Russia and the West acknowledges that what Putin says is simply not true. I mean, the expansion of NATO to the east and so on, it hasn't been really a violation of any agreements that were supposedly made because they weren't made any agreements. So, in essence, Putin is trying to shake the Western alliance, and let's be honest, he's quite successful in it. The relationship between the EU and the US is not what it was. So, he's poking and trying to find the weak spots in the Western alliance, and what he says about the root causes and the expansion of NATO to the east, he's trying to poke holes in it. And let's be honest as well. The United States is slowly withdrawing, right? I mean, they're focusing on China, and Europe needs to step up. So in some ways, he's, I think, achieving what he wants, which is less US in Europe, and that probably is where we're going anyway.
And as a final question, do you think it was a wise move to slap those tariffs on India and have it get closer to China and Russia? What is your opinion on this? I mean, we've seen Mr. Modi, who is getting closer to China than before.
Mr. Modi is not getting closer to China. He's pretending to be getting closer to China, and I think people who know the relationship
I'm glad you clarified.
between China and India know that he's not getting close. But of course, Trump miscalculated. He thought Modi is going to cave in and stop, or at least make some promises not to buy Russian crude. He hasn't succeeded, but in the long term, they're going to resolve this issue.
Thank you very much. Tomasz Włostowski, Managing Partner at EU Strategies, was my guest. Pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And so this would be all the latest news for now here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you back here on TVP World in just a moment.